Alexandra David-Neel and the Heat of the Mystic. Alexandra David-Neel was born in Paris in 1868, but at age 6 her parents moved to Belgium. She became an explorer, spiritualist and Buddhist, who also reached the 30th degree in the mixed Scottish rite of Freemasonry. David-Neel also wrote over 30 books about Eastern religion, philosophy, and her travels. She wrote in French, but a large number of her books have been translated into other languages. In Tunis in 1900, she met and lived with the railroad engineer Philip Neel, marrying him in 1904. Although Alexandra legally separated from Philippe in 1928, they continued to exchange letters, and he kept supporting her till his death in 1941. Alexandra visited Lhasa, Tibet in 1924, when it was forbidden to foreigners. She also travelled all over Tibet, Sikkim, parts of China, India, Vietnam, plus many more countries. And she did it mostly alone. She learnt the language in Tibet, visited monasteries, and questioned the occupants. In 1911, Alexandra was invited to the royal monastery of Sikkim, where she met Maharaj Kumar, Crown Prince Sidkyong Tulku Namgyal, who became a good friend. She also met the 13th Dalai Lama twice in 1912, and had the opportunity to ask him many questions about Buddhism, a feat unprecedented for a European woman at that time. In the period 1914-1916, she lived in a cave in Sikkim, near the Tibetan border, together with the young, born 1899, Sikkimese monk Afur Yongden, who became her lifelong travelling companion, and whom she would later adopt. The pair returned to France in 1946. Alexandra was then 78 years old. In 1955, Yongden died at age 56. Alexandra continued to study and write till her death at age nearly 101. According to her last will and testament, her ashes and those of Yongden were mixed together and dispersed in the Ganges. And this video is about how she used Tummo to save both her and Yongden's life. What is Tumo? Alexandra David-Neel, with mystics and magicians in Tibet, the art of warming oneself without fire up in the snows. To spend the winter in a cave amidst the snows, at an altitude that varies between 11,000 and 18,000 feet, clad in a thin garment or even naked, and escape freezing, is a somewhat difficult achievement. Yet numbers of Tibetan hermits go safely each year through this ordeal. Their endurance is ascribed to the power which they have acquired to generate Tumo. The word Tumo signifies heat, warmth, but is not used in Tibetan language to express ordinary heat or warmth. It is a technical term of mystic terminology, and the effects of that mysterious heat are not confined to warming the anchorites who can produce it. Tibetan adepts of the secret law distinguish various kinds of Tummo. Exoteric Tummo, which arises spontaneously in the course of peculiar raptures and gradually folds the mystic in the soft, warm mantle of the gods. Esoteric Tummo, that keeps the hermits comfortable on the snowy hills. A mystic Tummo, which can only claim a distant and quite figurative connection with the term warmth, for it is the experience of paradisiac bliss in this world. In the secret teaching, Tumo is also the subtle fire which warms the generative fluid and drives the energy in it, till it runs all over the body along the tiny channels of the stars. Superstition and odd physiological ideas have contributed to give birth to many extraordinary stories on this subject. Only a few, even in mystic circles, are thoroughly acquainted with the several kinds of Tumo. While the wonderful effects of the Tumo that warms and keeps alive the hermits in the snowy wilds are known to every Tibetan, it does not follow that the process by which that mysterious heat is produced is equally familiar to all of them. On the contrary, it is kept secret by the lamas who teach it. Testing the Tumo student. Alexandra David-Neel, with mystics and magicians in Tibet, the art of warming oneself without fire up in the snows. Sometimes a kind of examination concludes the training of the Tumo students. Upon a frosty winter night, those who think themselves capable of victoriously enduring the test are led to the shore of a river or a lake. If all the streams are frozen in the region, a hole is made in the ice. A moonlit night, with a hard wind blowing, is chosen. Such nights are not rare in Tibet during the winter months. The neophytes sit on the ground, cross-legged and naked. Sheets are dipped in the icy water. Each man wraps himself in one of them and must dry it on his body. As soon as the sheet has become dry, it is again dipped in the water and placed on the novice's body to be dried as before. The operation goes on in that way until daybreak. Then he who has dried the largest number of sheets is acknowledged the winner of the competition. It is said that some dry as many as 40 sheets in one night. One should perhaps make large allowance for exaggeration, yet I have seen some Respas dry a number of pieces of cloth the size of a large shawl. According to the old rule, one must have dried at least 3 sheets to be a true Respa, entitled to wear the white cotton skirt, insignia of proficiency in Tumo. But I doubt if the rule is strictly observed nowadays. Respa means one who wears but a single cotton garment in all seasons and at any height. Yet Respas who slip warm clothes are not lacking in Tibet. They are either complete frauds or monks who have really gone through Tumo training but have not pursued it long enough to obtain its full benefits. Nevertheless, though there are frauds and mediocrities, some Tumo adepts go beyond the Respa, and rejecting even their cotton garment, live entirely naked in the recesses of the high mountain ranges for long periods, sometimes it is said even for life. Besides drying wet sheets on one's body, there exist various other tests to ascertain the degree of heat which the neophyte is able to radiate. One of these tests consists in sitting in the snow. The quantity of snow melted under the man and the distance at which it melts around him are taken as measures of his ability. Using Tumo to save her and Yongden's life. Alexandra David-Neel. My journey to Lhasa. Yongden had gone in the direction of the hills in search of fuel, and I found some near the river in a flat place, which must have been a camping place in the summer. I called the young man back, gathered as much fuel as I could, and certain that nobody was wandering in that wilderness, we decided to pitch our tent in a low place among a few bushes. The flint and steel which, according to Tibetan custom, Yongden had carried attached to his belt in a pouch had become wet during our passage across the snowfields, and now it did not work at all. This was a serious matter. If we escaped being frozen, we were not at all certain that we should not catch pneumonia or some other serious disease. And yet some nurse said, Yongden, you are, I know, initiated in the Tummo Reskiang practice. Warm yourself, and do not bother about me. I shall jump and move to keep my blood moving. Yeah, true. I had studied under 2 Tibetan gomchans the strange art of increasing the internal heat. For long I had been puzzled by the stories I had heard and read on the subject, and as I am of a somewhat scientific turn of mind, I wanted to make the experiment myself. With great difficulties, showing an extreme perseverance in my desire to be initiated into the secret, and after a number of ordeals, I succeeded in reaching my aim. I saw some hermits seated night after night, motionless on the snow, entirely naked, sunk in meditation while the terrible winter blizzard whirled and hissed around them. I saw under the bright full moon the test given to their disciples who on the shore of a lake or a river in the heart of the winter dried on their bodies as on a stove a number of sheets dipped in the icy water, and I learned the means of performing these feats. I had inured myself during 5 months of the cold season to wearing the single thin cotton garment of the students at a 13,000-foot level. But the experience once over, I felt that a further training would have been a waste of time for me, who as a rule could choose my dwelling, or provide myself with heating apparatus. I therefore returned to fires and warm clothes, and thus could not be taken for an adept in the Tummo Reskiang, as my companion believed. Nevertheless, I liked at times to remember the lesson I had learned, and to sit on some snowy summit in my thin dress of Reskiang. But the present was not the time to look selfishly after my own comfort. I wanted to try to kindle a fire that had nothing miraculous about it, but which could warm my adopted son as well as myself. Go, said I to Yongden, collect as much dry cow dung and dry twigs as you can. The exertion will prevent you from getting cold. I will see after the fire business. He went, convinced that the fuel was useless, but I had got an idea. After all, the flint and steel were wet and cold. What if I warmed them on me, as I had dry dripping sheets when a student of Tummo Reskiang? I put the flint and steel and a pinch of the moss under my clothes, sat down, and began the ritualistic practice. Soon I saw flames arising around me. They grew higher and higher. They enveloped me, curling their tongues above my head. I felt deliciously comfortable. A loud report awakened me. The ice on the river was rending. The flames suddenly died down, as if entering the ground. I opened my eyes. The wind was blowing hard and my body burned. I made haste. The flint and steel and moss would work this time. I was convinced of it. I was still half dreaming. Although I had got up and walked round the tent, I felt fire bursting out of my head, of my fingers. I placed on the ground a little dry grass, a small piece of very dry cow dung, and I knocked the stone. The spark sprang out of it. I knocked again. Another sprang out. Another. A miniature fireworks. The fire was lighted. It was a little baby flame which wanted to grow, to eat, to live. I fed it, and it leaped higher and higher. When Yongden arrived with a quantity of dry cow dung in the lap of his dress and some branches between his arms, he was joyfully astonished. "How have you done it?" he asked. "Well, it is the fire of Tumo," I answered, smiling. The Lama looked at me. "True," he said, "your face is quite red, and your eyes are so bright." "Yes," I replied, "that is all right. Let me alone now, and make a good buttered tea quickly. I need a very hot drink." I feared a little for the morrow, but I awakened in perfect health when the sun touched the thin cloth of our tent.